I'm from the north of England, but I live in the south, so my vowels have become a bit confused over time. But in chess, the other word for rook is castle. The ancient Roman town of Aquasulis is Bath. And the big red vehicle that takes me around London for free is a bus. A bus! So when I tell you that the topic of today's video is the Nagra Model E analogue tape recorder, I sometimes have to check myself because I've heard it so often as Nagra. Nagra. It's Nagra. Nagra. And if I get it wrong during the course of this video, I'm going to dub it. So why the Nagra Model E? Well, I'm more of a Nagra Model 4S kind of guy, having used it loads during the 1980s. But a Model E, well, it's just more hardcore. And if you're a hardcore audiophile, or shall I say hi-fi enthusiast, you're going to want one. Yes, you'll want it because it's analogue, it's vintage. Nagra tape recorders are the best tape recorders in the world. Comment? And one more thing. This will make you stand out from all of your fellow audiophiles and hi-fi enthusiasts. You'll be the toast of the party and you'll never have to buy your own drinks at the bar. Here's what Audio Technology Switzerland, Nagra's parent company, has to say about it.
The Nagra E is a portable mono full-track 6.35mm quarter-inch analog audio tape recorder designed for radio reporters. This recorder has a single speed of 19 centimeters per second, 7.5 inches per second, NAB or CCIR standard. 1 mic input, switchable to dynamic T condenser or balanced line. 1 voltage or current line input convertible to a second mic input. Floating 4.4 volt output. The Nagra E contains separate recording and playback heads for confidence playback, built-in monitoring speaker switchable to source or tape, a reference generator and a modulometer. The Nagra E is particularly sturdy and simple to operate and service. It is designed to be adjustable and serviceable in the field, thanks to its simple circuit design, component markings, and the enclosed circuit diagram indicating test points and voltages. Furthermore, the meter can be used as a voltmeter with the internally provided test probe. A number of electronic components are enclosed for easy servicing. The machine may also be powered from either an external supply, ATN4, or internal batteries.
It'll be interesting to look at my YouTube stats to see how often that bit gets replayed. Let's look at the photos in more detail. The Nagra E is a very compact machine, as are all of Nagra's portable tape recorders. In this photo it probably looks larger than it is because of the spools, but they're not the full-size 10.5-inch spools that we're used to. These are 7-inch reels that make the machine look bigger in comparison. A bit like Ed Sheeran playing his parlour guitar. Full-size reels can be used with the aid of an adapter. Going from left to right, we'll see a tension roller followed by the erase head, which, for those who might be new to analogue recording, wipes the tape clean of any previous recording. Then there's a stabilizer roller with a stroboscope to check the tape speed. You might think that the machine should just run at the correct speed, and so it should. But the cost of the speed being wrong could be enormous in a professional production, so it's very nice to have. The 50 on top indicates that this machine was made for the European market, with 50 Hz mains frequency and CCIR equalization. Oh yes, as a hardcore analogue fan, you'll need to know all about NAB, IEC and CCIR equalization. Oh, and AES and Nagra Master, available in other Nagra machines. What fun! Moving on. Next we have the record head, the playback head, the pinch wheel and capstan, the pinch wheel control lever and the right tension roller. The pinch wheel control lever is interesting because it makes the Nagra E and other portable Nagra recorders very hands-on. And I could say it feels like a manual gearbox in a car, driving a stick, as I've heard our North American friends say, or pressing the shutter of a film camera. It's part of the experience, and if you aspire to owning a Nagra, it's the experience you aspire to as much as the equipment itself. Operating a Revox B77 in comparison is just button pushing. The machine does all the work. Here, though, you'll have to get used to pinch wheel in, pinch wheel out, rather slow and clunky fast forward and rewind. And if you rewind with the selector on record and the tape touches the erase or record heads, the manual warns it will be partially erased. As I said, My experience was with the Model 4S, but I do remember how fiddly to operate it was, and try editing on it. Let's look at the front panel. I find this rather beautiful, as are all Nagra products. I might say it's maybe not the best to get information from quickly until you're used to it, but beauty can be an end in itself. We have a meter, which Nagra impressively calls a modulometer, and you'll notice there's a calibration in volts that can be used for internal testing. Moving right, we have line inputs on banana sockets. Yes, banana sockets that mate with banana plugs. That'll be those banana plugs that are banned in Europe, due to the fact they fit just nicely into the main sockets over there. Not so much with the vastly superior UK kind. But hey. Moving on again, we have microphone gain setting and a dual function control for line level input and playback level. I can't remember how this dual function control works, and the manual is no help. But finding out is part of the fun you'll have when you own a Nagra E for yourself. On the right, we have the main function selector, where you'll power on the machine, check your level, record, playback, fast forward and rewind. And there's a clever device that will prevent you accidentally recording over a tape you recorded previously. I think that's happened to the best of us, hasn't it? I won't go over every feature, but I'd like to mention the inputs over on the left of the machine. The olden days of audio. The days when we had XLR connectors, commonly and not entirely incorrectly called Canon connectors, Tuckle connectors, DIN connectors, and a variety of other connectors you'd never see these days. Oh yes, and when we always expect a female XLR to be input and a male XLR output, in the old days it was often the other way round. And sometimes pin 3 was hot. Oh yes, and where we use phantom power exclusively for microphones these days, unless they have their own power supply, there used to be T-power. Incompatible. Obviously. Just a taster of the fun you're going to have. Now, I need to talk about audio quality. Nagra was the best of the best. Years ago, I commonly used the Studer B62, Studer A80, and, as I said, the Nagra 4S. Also the Studer A62 when I had to. The B62 was clearly better than the A62. Well, that was my opinion because I never had the opportunity to compare them directly. But I did with the B62 and A80, recording a live orchestra using parallel mixer outputs. It wasn't all that easy to hear, but the A80 was cleaner, clearer and better. I'd say through less modulation noise and scrape flutter. Then I tried a similar comparison with the Nagra 4S. Better again. Not by much, but better. My memory turns to an occasion back in the very early 1980s when I was booked to record in the Queen Elizabeth Hall on London's South Bank. However, there were different fees according to whether it was a professional recording or an amateur recording. I seem to remember that an amateur recording was £15. Well, that's all the promoter wanted to pay, in addition to my fee, of course. Some might call it corner cutting, nickel and diming, or you could say managing the budget wisely. And the difference between a professional and an amateur recording? Well, my Nagra 4S was so tiny, all I had to do was promise to record at 7.5 inches per second, rather than 15, and accept that noise reduction wasn't allowed. The thing was, though, this recorder was so good, I could get a perfectly usable recording at 7.5 inches per second. Easily good enough for broadcast or cassette duplication. Maybe not up to the highest standard for vinyl release, but pretty damn close. Anyway, we all went home happy, the venue got its 15 quid, and I got paid rather more than that. I said you would have to be pretty hardcore analog to want to own a machine like this. I'm going to tell you something. Are you ready? No, you're not ready yet. First, I have to make sure that you understand that the Nagra E only runs at 7.5 inches per second. That's not the best speed for analog tape recording. The best speed is 15 inches per second. No, it's 30 inches per second. No, it's 18 inches per second. I was told that personally by Tim de Paravicini when I went to look at his specially modified 1-inch Studer C37 machine. 30 inches per second is better than 15 because it allows a better high-frequency response and is also a little quieter. But the faster the tape runs, the more you get frequency response irregularities in the low end, sometimes known as head bumps or woodles. So, according to the great Tim, 18 would be best. It's just not a standard speed. So, 7.5. Well, clearly 15 would be better. But this is a Nagra, and as I said from my South Bank run-in with venue management, it sounded fine. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that if you want the analogue tape experience, at 7.5, you'll get more of it. Now, that's something that I have to tell you. It may, or may not, be a deal breaker. The Nagra E, it's mono. Glorious, full track, mono. No left, no right, just M-O-N-O. It takes a certain kind of purist to go for that. Obviously, for radio interviews or film dialogue, mono is just fine. You only need one channel, you only want one channel, and you only have one channel. What's good about this is that the signal-to-noise ratio can be better. Splitting the tape into 2 channels degrades the signal-to-noise ratio by 3 dB, and a little more because there has to be an unrecorded guard band down the middle of the tape. Full-track mono, though, it doesn't get any more purist than this. So, you've bought a Nagra E from eBay or some exotic audio dealer. What are you going to do with it? Or should I say, as an audiophile, what are you going to do with it? Well, the very best use, I would say, would be to go out and record some music in mono. Get yourself a good mic, make sure it's got the right connectors and powering method, then find yourself some live musicians and the best place to position your mic stand. It is actually a very interesting experience to record in mono. I know because I've done it. Microphone position in stereo is obviously important, but stereo just sounds good anyway, and you can get away with a lot. With mono, you can get a great sound if you work for it. Mono concentrates the mind. Mono with a single mic, even more so. Another use might be the simple enjoyment of mono analog tape sound. I know that to some of us this might sound a bit crazy, but to audiophiles, this kind of thing is fun, and I respect them for that. So, fire up your best £30,000 worth of turntable, put on your most cherished vintage mono record, pipe it through your most fastidious preamp, and record it onto your Nagra E. You can listen again and again for the finest analog mono magnetic tape experience. One more use would be for producers. We all know how lifeless, soulless, and stone-cold frigid digital audio is. All synonyms for accurate, in my opinion, but let's just skip over that. Well, what about warming up your recording by passing it through your Nagra E? Because the Nagra E has separate record and playback heads, you can record and playback simultaneously. OK, there's a slight delay, but you can compensate for that in your digital audio workstation software. You'd have to do this track by track because the machine is mono. You might get away with processing a stereo mix 1 channel at a time, but I'm guessing there would be phase problems. But try it and see. Anyway, that's enough for now. You know whether or not you would like to own a Nagra E. No, you want to own a Nagra E. Maybe not forever, but to spend some quality time with and get to be bosom friends. I should probably say that there's stuff like maintenance and alignment that I haven't covered here, but that's all the more for you to enjoy. I'll leave you with those lovely shots of the Nagra E. See you soon.